Good evening. I'm Kendric Carlock, current student here at Grand Canyon University, and I just really wanted to have a conversation with you about professional dispositions and school counseling and kind of how they align with me personally. I have so many qualities and behaviors that have really helped me to understand of how indicative they are of me to becoming a school counselor. Like constantly, if I've had conversation with friends and family over how I'm able to listen to understand and not listen to kind of respond. And it really allows people to feel comfortable as in the ways of which they can open up to me and feel comfortable. And that truly has helped guide my decision to be ultimately becoming a school counselor. And then when you look into what I've heard from friends and family, and then I started the school counseling program, and we did this assignment that talked about some of the standards and those mindsets and those behaviors that are true that are usually indicated within school counselors. Some of them really aligned with me, and they really kind of guide my thinking. Like, for example, when I look at the standard that talks about how educators should promote and support that curiosity and encourage that active inquiry, I find myself that I constantly do that with the students that I work with. I'm constantly trying to figure out how to level out that equilibrium, how to make sure that all of my students have the same opportunity. I think that as a school counselor, I will use that standard to make sure that everyone has the same academic and the same social and those emotional resources to be as successful as they can in their future self. I currently, some of the dispositions that are like really strong with me is my ability to be sensitive to the individual learning and those social needs of my students and embrace the cultural diversity of the community is really strong within my mindset. I know that my students come from different places. I know that one student is not going to be like the next student, but the one thing that I know professionally is that I have to be able to serve those students with that same mindset and that same idea that I know that this student has the ability to be successful. If I, as an educator, look deep and figure out what I need to do to help them. And that's currently is one of those dispositions that I really possess. Another one is just when you talk about promoting social justice, I want to be that counselor that allows my students to come into my office and to know that, hey, I can't turn that blind eye to the things that are happening in the world and social justice because I know that these affect the social and the mental capacity that my students have to be able to become effective learners within the classroom. So as a schools educator, I know that I've got to pay close attention to what my students have going on in their social in the social justice and those equity issues. I think that like I these dispositions they really help me understand my culture because I have to understand that if I want to build a strong relationship with my students and my families, I have to understand where they come from. I've got to understand and recognize that I've got to promote that curiosity. I've got to promote them to be feel like they have the space to learn. And when you look at the disposition that talks about the educators should model integrity to their words and their actions, I've got to walk the same walk that I walk with my students. If I want to build that strong relationship with my families, they've got to be able to have that trust within me. Um, and then when you talk about those dispositions that you need to work, that I need to work on, because I know that this field is constantly growing, I've got to be able to listen. I've got to be committed to the profession of teaching and learning if I want to see success in the field of counseling. And ultimately, I hope that I'm going to use that feedback of the data that I see to be able to go in and change for the betterment of my students. And collectively, I know that I will be able to provide that learning for my students.